Welcome to this season of podcast. My name's Bowen. I'm naming this Time Capsule. This is what this was introduced in the UK. Explore the stories and giving their opinion. It's many of us already know disabled people, news affects our lives. It's very rare to represent in the media. So then this podcast is no effort to try and address that.
SEN system overhaul education. UK's new education reform bill aims to bring generational reforms of special educational needs and disability SEN system. Proposed changes will introduce digital individual support plans, SPSEs, and establish 3 new tiers of targeted support wherever educational need is awarding the successful implementation depends on increased funding and workforce capacity. I was going to do special mistakes. Meaning, basically, the reforms involve kind of tightening the need evaluation of who gets an ESPCH, and also trying to in old games with special schools, as we know, in terms of obviously trying to integrate more people into mainstream schools and targeted support in the classroom in terms of additional SEN non-educational SEN from the classroom, such as speech therapies, ATs, etc. To have hands-on support for teaching staff and teaching assistants. Obviously the digital support plan as well as the paid online, and then more interaction in terms of copies that going to parents, so they have it on hand and can be related and they can discuss teach reviews of whether that's working, etc. To parents. Like I say, I didn't do younger piece on this from the initial plan. All of the exams that I say it sounds great, people saying it sounds great, I don't think it sounds great because I think they create a bigger problem, bigger issue. I've said it before, we've talked about it before in terms of they were saying that they bill the cost of things, etc. But all of this implementation is going to increase the cost, but also I don't see the effectiveness because of the system. What a lot of people are saying is it's hard to get support for the child to begin with, and they need to be recognised early enough, and then actually implement support. Now, if they're struggling to implement the support within the traditional special needs educational environment, I fail to see how they're going to implement that in an even more busy, rushed environment. But for mainstream schools that are already struggling with that size, children without additional needs are struggling to get the support that they need, even in terms of the minimal support they need in comparison to those with additional needs, because classroom sizes are so big. Now, I know you'll talk about special needs units. Well, where are you going to fit these into the schools? We need to build more schools, or to actually schools in disrepair, and that's something that's been swept over the carpet for successive governments, and that's going to come to a head. So you've got a whole kind of capital spending program that needs to go anyway, and if you're going to remove people with additional needs whose needs aren't being met at the moment, as we've seen in many cases, and the schools that exist where they're struggling to meet those needs, you've got to address what those needs are before you move them into a new environment. First, you've got to size and capacity for the extra income. You've also got to navigate a way of how it is productive for them to get their needs met. And for a lot of these, say for instance, those with, say for instance, disabilities, say severe disabilities, maybe they're neurodivergent, and have a lot of needs. A lot of that they need is one-to-one support, but also they need space. that can't thrive in busy environments that have to be in quiet places. So, where are you going to find that extra space? How are you going to help them to flourish? You need to identify what they need first. I think a lot of the times, as I've said many times, the answer is all. It's by bold announcements of more cash and more this and more that. The problem is identify need first of all, and then you have to work out a system of how that need is met. And now you can have individual plans. I get that, but what's on the plan? And that's the thing. Where's the bleeding poles? So I was saying, digitalising it, digitalising it doesn't make it any different if the needs aren't addressed properly, whether it's in paper file or whether it's iPad is a niche issue. It's an expertise needed to make the needs that are being addressed. They can't be addressed in SEN school for people with those high needs. How are they going to be addressed in a busy classroom environment? And how are you going to have these extra additional staff? How is that going to function within that same environment? And also, how are you going to navigate the social needs of those kids within that environment as well? Because they're already under the people can be the odd ones out in terms of having additional needs. They can see that because of threat in those environments. You can do that in the units, or you can integrate them into mainstream classes with non-disabled kids. How are you going to do that? Because if you're going to do the format, you're just creating bigger SEN units within schools, mainstream schools, in which case there's not real integration, is it? In which case, what's the point? And again, go back to the point of space and the capacity. There isn't the capacity, so I don't know, it just doesn't make sense if you're going to do the latter, which is integrate the two. If you can't integrate and meet the needs of these kids within an environment in which all the kids have similar needs, how are you going to do it with kids that have separate needs? It feels like it's gearing up for Christmas. That's the time it feels like it's take care. I don't know the other problems where these intros as well as if it's going to be a case of it's a cost cutting measure. So you maybe if you're just in those special schools and they create big units but ultimately and maybe they streamline disparity. I don't know what it's but I think in terms of I don't know how much there's disparity pay between SEN teachers and non-SEN teachers. And it's that part of it as well, but ultimately we're going to have to do it very slowly and they're going to have to try out in baby steps. And I think you need a very 5-10 year plan at the very least to try and phase this in and obviously find money from somewhere. It's going to cost for the joint producer when you talk about the cost of the bill. It sounds like a huge project to take. It's going to cost billions to even start to get right. Yes, I spent in terms of the signification is found at the moment today. How you can improve that in terms of getting new staff into the education sector in terms of the additional professionals. I'm not talking about teaching professionals, I'm talking about the additional professionals. How do you entice them to the education sector if the system present isn't working? Because that's going to be a factor. Whether it's educational psychologists, whether it's LTs, speech and language therapists, having a behavioural therapist, specialists, and T specialists, whether it's psychiatry from NHS, and because I think that's if the system isn't working because of those issues, is it maybe it's just teaching, but again, wherever you recruit the teachers from, but you get them from private education to come in. It's the other they're private SEN schools. Or you get them from the college system, from the speed colleges and bring them in. Don't have the answers, but I think these don't care for them properly. I think this could make things 10 times worse, because ultimately, before you start, mass integration, they needed to fix the system as it was in SEN schools in isolation. Because if you're not going to fix it in isolation, it's in schools and then integrate. What I'm trying to say, I suppose, is once you've found a system for SEN that works outside of the special needs system, or outside of the mainstream system, or in the units, if that is fixed, that's when you integrate them, because you have less friction. Which children will thrive in that environment and which children won't. Now, as things stand, very few seem to be thriving. There seems to be chaos. There seems to be, in fact, needs are being met or not being identified. So, throwing them all in the mix for that is best for chaos. No. Anyway, that's just